الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له نشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We concluded last week's lesson by looking at those things which are considered mustahab and sunnats in wudu. And we were looking at one particular thing which is considered mustahab and wudu, and that is taqleedul lihya, which means to pass wet fingers through your beard. And this is something which is considered mustahab and sunnah in wudu. I promised in last week's lesson that in our next lesson we will take this opportunity to look at the Islamic ruling and the FIQH ruling of the status of beard in Islam. Now, what do the ulamas and the fuqaha, the jurists have said with regards to the beard? Now, it is mentioned in an authentic hadith which can be found in Sahih al-Bukhari, where Rasulullah ﷺ has said, "Khaliful mushrikeen," oppose the mushrikeen, oppose the idol worshippers. Wa'ful luha, lengthen your beard. Wa'ful shawarib, and cut or trim your mustache. Now, when we look at and analyze this particular hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ is telling us to oppose the mushrikeen, not to imitate them, not to follow the mushrikeen, the idol worshippers, the disbelievers, but to oppose them. And how is Rasulullah ﷺ telling us to oppose the mushrikeen and the idol worshippers? Is by lengthening the beard and by trimming the mustache. So from this we can understand that during Rasulullah ﷺ's time, the mushrikeen, they would lengthen their mustache and trim their beards or shave their beards. So Rasulullah ﷺ is telling us to be different from them, and he has told us that we should lengthen our beard and we should trim our mustache. Now, there is a very common or a very accepted principle in Islam, and that is that whenever Rasulullah ﷺ mentions an order, whenever he gives us an order, then that order comes for WUDHU and comes for obligation. Meaning that it is an order which we have to act upon unless there is some kind of other reasons or other excuse which the Sharia deems to be valid for us not to accept that particular order and that particular command. So what I'm trying to say is that in the hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ very clearly is giving the Muslims an order, and that is that they should lengthen the beard. So unless there is another hadith or another Quranic verse where it says something else, the base ruling will remain there, and that is that it is obligatory and wajib for Muslims to lengthen the beard and to have long beards. Now, when we look at it from a fiqhi point of view or from a fiqhi angle, in the HANAFI fiqh, it is mentioned in Raddul Muhtar, which is the commentary of Durr Muhtar written by Allama ibn Abidin al-Shami rahmatullahi alayh, who has said that it is unlawful for one to trim his beard. And he has also said that it is also unlawful for one to shorten his beard less than a fist. This is something which is clear in the Hanafi fiqh, that is that it is unlawful to trim or shave your beard, and it is also unlawful and impermissible to shave or trim your beard less than a fistful. Similar statement is also found in the Maliki school of thought, where he says that it is unlawful for a man to shave his beard. And then he goes on to say that those who do, i.e. the perpetrators, they will be disciplined. In the 50 point they are not called TOSIR, i.e. they may be punished by the imam or by the qadi or by the judge for doing such a crime. In the Shafi school of thought, in Kitab al-Bum, it's mentioned that it is haram and unlawful to shave the beard, and similar statement can also be found in the Hanbali school of thought, where it says that it is a sunnah and an act of fitrah to lengthen the beard and it should not be trimmed at all. So what we can see from the Shafi school of thought, the Hanbali school of thought, the Maliki school of thought, and also in the Hanafi school of thought, and that is that the beard is something which should be lengthened and should not be trimmed and should not be shortened in all circumstances, and it should not be shortened less than a fistful. Now the next thing which we need to look at with regards to the beard is regarding the length of the beard. Now how long should the beard be? Now as I kind of indicated to you from the aforementioned text, that according to all schools of thought, the beard should be equivalent to a fistful. So it's not just like having a few hair or a strand of hair on your face that is enough or sufficient for it to be classed as a beard. It has to be equivalent to a fistful, and the length should be equivalent to one fist. And this is mentioned in a hadith which can be found in Sahih al-Bukhari, where it narrates the practice of a famous Sahabi in the name of Sayyiduna Abdullah bin Umar radhiyallahu anhu. And what Sayyiduna Abdullah bin Umar radhiyallahu anhu would do is that after he would perform his Hajj, and those of you who've been for Hajj will know that when you perform your Hajj, then you should shave your head, which is known as halaq, and when you shave your head, then you are released from your ihram. So Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar radhiyallahu anhu, he would shave his head, and then afterwards he will get a fistful of his beard and he will cut the excess. And this was also the practice of Sayyidina Umar radhiyallahu anhu and also of Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu, that they all had a fistful of beard. And in particular in Hajj, what would happen is that when they are releasing themselves from the ihram, not only would they shave their head to release themselves from ihram, they would get a handful of beard and then they would cut the excess, demonstrating, indicating that it was the practice upon sunnah of the Sahabas. And obviously the Sahabas were doing something that is indicating that they must have seen this practice from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to keep a fistful or a beard which is equivalent to one fist. And even when we look at the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we can see that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beard was also broad and was also equivalent to a fist as well. And there's two hadiths which I'm going to mention. There's one hadith which can be found in Sahih Muslim, where it says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beard was broad and dense. It's got these two words, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beard was broad and dense, indicating that it wasn't just like a trim beard or like a bit of beard on his face, but instead Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beard was long and it was broad and it was also thick and dense as well. And in another hadith of Sunan Abu Dawud, it's more clear that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did have a long beard. And in this hadith is actually found in the section of Salah, where the Sahabas, they narrate that we would know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would recite quietly in the Zuhr and Asr Salah bi-istirabi lihyatihi, by the movement of his beard. Because when you are reading Salah behind someone, you don't know whether he's reciting or not, because obviously he's reciting quietly. But the only way, or the way you can derive that the Imam is reading something in Salah, is that if his jaws move. Because when his jaws move, then the beard also moves as well, and that kind of is indicating that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would recite in the Zuhr Salah and in the Asr Salah. So just from the word and from the hadith itself, we can see that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beard must have been long for the Sahabas behind to realize that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beard was moved. Because if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a small beard or a beard less than a fistful, then you can't know, or you won't be able to know from behind whether Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's beard or his jaws are moving or not. Because the beard, if it was long, then you can easily tell from behind that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam beard would move. So that is a very clear hadith from Sunnah Abu Dawud indicating that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would recite in the Zuhr and Asr Salah, and also indicating at the same time that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have a long and a dense beard. So that is one of the mustahab acts of wuzu, and that is that you do khilal of your beard. Then he goes on to say, وَتَقْرَارِ الْغَسْلِ إِلَى الثَّلَاثِ, that is also mustahab and desirable that you wash each limb or each part of wuzu 3 times. So when you are washing your face, it should be washed 3 times. When you are washing your arms, it should be also washed 3 times. Your feet should also be washed 3 times. However, when it comes for masa, when it comes to doing masa of your head, then it should only be done once. Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh is of the view that it should be done 3 times. But in the Hanafi fiqh, he says that it should only be done once. And we've got proofs and hadiths in particular. There's a section in Sunnah Abu Dawud where it talks about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he would perform his wudu, and in it clearly says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam masaha marratan wahidatan, that he would only do masa of his head just once. So that again is another sunnah and a mustahab thing to do in wudu. Another thing which is mustahab and desirable and is mentioned here is وَيَسْتَحِبُّ لِلْمُتَوَضِّي أَن يَنْوِيَ الطَّهَارَةَ, that it is mustahab and desirable for the person who is performing the wuzu أَن يَنْوِيَ الطَّهَارَةَ, to make the intention of tahara. Basically, before you start the wuzu, to make the intention is also considered a sunnah and is also considered mustahab and desirable. Now let's have a look at intention. Now intention is something which is very important. And it is so important that Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayh, in the very first hadith of his Sahih al-Bukhari, the very first hadith which he brought was with regards to intention. And he narrates the hadith from Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab radhiyallahu anhu, and it's got the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, the actions are according to intention. And every single hadith book either starts with this particular hadith, or in the hadith itself, or in some section of the hadith, or on the chapters, you will find this particular hadith. And the reason why this hadith is so important is that it's just like a reminder for everyone, for Muslims who are doing khidmah, who are doing work for deen, that they should always keep a check on their intention. Intention is something which is very important, and I've mentioned this many times in the tafsir which I do on Saturdays, that your a'mal and your good deeds will only be accepted if the intention was correct. If you intended to do some good deed, or you're intending to do something, but your intention is not to please Allah, your intention is not to please Allah, and you're not doing it for the sake of deen or for the sake of religion, but you're doing it for your own personal gain, for your own personal fame, or you're doing it to compete with other people, with other mosques, with other institutions, then that thing you're doing, that program you're holding, would not be accepted in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, ikhlas, sincerity, a'mal and actions are accepted according to the level of sincerity. If there's no khulus, sincerity in your a'mal and deeds, your a'mal and actions would not be accepted. And I mentioned this before, but I haven't mentioned it here. I'll just show the importance of sincerity and ikhlas, and this can be seen from a hadith of Sahih al-Muslim narrated by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah al-Anhu. Now Sayyidina Abu Hurairah al-Anhu narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that on the day of judgment, 3 people will enter Jahannam and the fire of hell first. So forget your fornicators, forget your thieves, forget your mushriks and your idol worshippers. The 3 people who will enter Jahannam, the fire of hell, will be, number 1, a scholar, a alim. And the reason why this alim will enter Jahannam and the fire of hell first is because he learned knowledge, he acquired knowledge, he taught knowledge but for the wrong reason. He did it for fame, he did it for some personal gain, he did it for worldly purpose, for worldly reasons, and he did not do it for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because of that reason, that alim and that scholar will be thrown into the fire of hell. The second person will be a person who gives sadaqah and charity. So again, sadaqah and charity is a great deed, is a great action, but this person, he gave sadaqah and charity again for fame, so that people can say, oh, what a generous person he is, what a pious person he is, that he donated 1,000 pounds to the masjid. Because he did it for fame, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to accept his sadaqah and charity, and on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will throw him into the fire. And the third is a mujahid, is a warrior, who fought in the path of Allah, who sacrificed his life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but again, he did not do it for Allah's sake, for Allah's pleasure, but he did it so that people can call him brave, people can call him courageous. Because of that reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will throw him into the fire. So therefore, whenever you start, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning when we started the lesson, that you have come here with, first of all, when you come here with the intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure, and also with the intention of that whatever you learn from the lesson, you are going to then teach it to others. There's two things here. Whenever you acquire knowledge and ilm, it's a gift from Allah, but it's one of those gifts where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you and demands that you don't keep it with you, but instead you actually spread it to people. And that's why there are many hadiths where he talks about the importance of acquiring and seeking knowledge, but then at the same time not to keep it with you, but to teach it to others as well. It's like the hadith of Sunan Tirmidhi, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "La khayrukum man ta'allama al-Quran wa 'allama." That the best amongst you are those ta'allama al-Quran, who learns the Quran, who memorizes the Holy Quran, who learns how to recite the Holy Quran, who learns with tajweed. But the fadila, the virtue, is not just restricted to that. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam hasn't said that that's it, just learn the Quran, that's it, just close the book now and just forget all about it. But no. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that the best are those who learn the Quran, and then on top of that, wa'allama, then they teach it to others. Then they are the best of people. Similarly, in another hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that ballighu anni walau ayah, that preach from me, even though it may be a verse, even though it may be a sign of Islam, even though it may be a point of Islam. So even could be a small masla which you may have learned today or you may have understood today. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is encouraging us then to teach it to others, teach it to your family, teach it to your brothers, your sisters, your wives, your children, and so on. You should teach whatever you know about Islam. You should always try your best to then preach it to others and to teach it to others as well. Because when you teach knowledge to someone, as mentioned in the hadith, it is known as sadaqah jariyah. And what happens with sadaqah jariyah is that you will get the reward in this world, but even after you pass away, you will also get the reward as well. Just say if you taught someone just one simple masla about how to do wuzu, or how to do istinja, or how to do the ghusl, or this particular thing breaks the wuzu, and this person before he did not know that, and because of you telling him, he knows that masla and then he acts upon that masla, then as long as you are alive in this world, you will get the reward and thawab for that. And if you were to pass away, then whilst you are in your grave, you will also get the reward and thawab for that. So that is the virtue and the true reality of knowledge. That is that you learn and acquire knowledge, and whatever you know, you then preach it to others as well. This was like the practice of the Sahabas, that whenever, not talking about when they were in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but when they were by themselves, they would actually teach others what they heard from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what they know from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what they may have seen or heard some other Sahabis, other Khulafa Rashidin did, and they will narrate that. And that's how Islam spread. Islam initially did not spread. They didn't like write all the hadiths in Sahih al-Bukhari during Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam time, and then you've got all the hadiths. No, it was like the Sahabas, they would actually teach it to another Sahabi, Another Sahaba would then teach it to his family, and then they would then teach it to someone else, and this is how Islam spread. So again, we are trying to be the basis, the pillars for Islam to spread in the city of Birmingham, also in the whole UK and also in the whole world. And that can only be achieved and done is that whenever you learn something, you then preach it and teach it to others. So going back to what I was saying regarding intention, it's very important that you make intention of knowledge that you come here for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure, and whatever you're going to learn, you are then going to preach it to others. And just one final thing regarding preaching and so on, is that sometimes we are we are quite hard on ourselves. And we always think to ourselves, oh, well, I don't know anything. I don't know how to speak English properly. How can I go and teach others? How can I go and explain it to my friends what this particular ruling is trying to say? Now remember, don't worry about any kind of deficiencies you may have. Don't worry about, oh, I don't know how to speak English properly. I don't know how to actually say a sentence properly. Or when I explain to others, I get shy, I stutter. Don't worry about that. As I mentioned before, that as long as you have ikhlas and sincerity in your heart, you will realize that when you have sincerity and ikhlas in your heart, you will be saying things and you could feel it that you're not actually saying it, but it's coming directly from Allah. Because when you are sincere, when you have ikhlas in your heart, you get this kind of hidden help from Allah. You get this, what we say in Urdu and Arabic as ghaybi imdad, like a help from Allah, unseen help from Allah, that where you are saying things, but because it's coming from the bottom of your heart, it's as though that it's coming from Allah. So even though you may not be practicing before your words, whatever, but because you're sincere and you are saying what you really want to say, then it's as though that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping you and it's coming from the pitch of your heart. So don't worry about, I don't know English properly. Whatever you know about Islam, you should always get in the habit of teaching and preaching to others. Now going back to the text which I've just mentioned, and that is that it is mustahab for even a person who's doing wuzu, that he makes the intention of cleanliness and tahara. Then he goes on to say, وَيَسْتَوْئِبُ رَأْسَهُ بِالْمَسِّ. That another thing which is considered mustahab and desirable in wuzu is that when you do masa of your whole head. Last week's lesson I mentioned that it's only compulsory and first to do masa of a quarter of your head. However, it is mustahab and desirable to do masa of your whole head. The next text goes on to say, وَيُرَتِّبُ الْوُضُوء, and you should do the wuzu in order and in tartib. So you should do the wuzu and the applications of wuzu, the rituals of wuzu, that should be done in tartib, in order. Again, that is also considered sunnah and mustahab as well. And it goes on to say that you should start from that order which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has started from. Indicated in the verse of Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that all those who believe, إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ, that when you intend to read salah, then what should you do? فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ, wash your face, وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ, wash your arms, إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, up to your elbows, وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, do masa of your head, and then lastly, وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ مِنَ الْكَعْبَيْنِ, and wash your feet up to your ankles. So what this particular text is saying is that it is mustahab and desirable that you do the wuzu in order. Okay, you don't have to, and if you didn't do it in order, your wuzu would still be correct and valid, but it is mustahab and desirable that you do the wuzu actions in order. So similarly, like the other sunnah which we do before, like washing our hands up to our wrists and gargling and then cleansing our nose and cleaning our nose. Again, these three things should be done in order. Then after that, we should wash our face, wash our arms, do masa, and wash our feet up to our ankles. Another thing which is considered mustahab and desirable is wabil mayami, is to start from the right hand side. Mayami means that whenever you are doing the wuzu, then you should start from the right hand side. Now I'm just going to mention a few things with regards to starting from the right hand side. It is a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that everything which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would do, he will start from the right. And it mentioned a hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, narrated by Sayyidah Aisha anha, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to start everything from the right in washing, in combing his hair, and in wearing his shoes and sandals. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would wear his sandals, he would start from the right. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would comb his hair, he would start from the right. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would wash, whether it is for ghusl or whether it is for wuzu, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will always do it from the right. And in another hadith, it says that, and those things which are not considered to be from cleanliness, not considered to be honored things, respected things, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would do those things with his left hand. So, like for example, cleaning his nose, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would use his left hand to clean his nose. So when you are cleaning your nose for wuzu, you should use your left hand. Inshallah, I'll show you in a second how to exactly do the wuzu. Similarly, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would do istinja, then he would use his left hand. Similarly, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would do khilal between his toes, he will use the little finger on his left hand. So things which are not considered to be like out of honor, out of dignity, out of respect, out of taqdeem, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would use his left hand. But besides those, for any other thing, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would always use his right hand, or would always start from the right. So similarly, because wuzu is from a very noble act, because we will be doing wuzu to read salah and touching the Quran and other kind of activities, so therefore Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would start from his right. There's one issue here with regards to starting from the right, and that is that it is mentioned in the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, this time narrated by Sayyidina Ibn Abbas radhiyallahu anhu, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has always said, "Fal-ayman wal-ayman," which basically means that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, say for example, would give something, he would always start from the right. Whenever Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would meet someone, he would start from the right. So this principle, it's in Sahih al-Bukhari, this hadith, it says that when you meet someone, you should always start from the right. When you going somewhere, when you are giving something to someone, you should always start from the right. However, there is a contradiction against this particular hadith, because in Sunan Abu Dawud, under the section of miswak, about the importance of miswak, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was once doing miswak, and there was a young child on his right hand side, and then there was a mature man on his left. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did his miswak, and then acting upon the earlier hadith of al-ayman fal-ayman, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was about to give the miswak to the kid, or to this young child on his right hand side. But then what happened? Wahi, divine revelation came, and it ordered Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that not to give the miswak to the child on the right hand side, but instead to give it to that mature person on the left hand side. Now from here, the reason why it was done, obviously, it's got to do with more of a hadith argument, obviously to show the importance of miswak, that's why Allah gave the order that you should give it to that particular mature man. But from the hadith, what we can gather is, and from the earlier hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari of al-ayman fal-ayman, and that is that the general rule and principle is that whenever you are meeting someone, whenever you are giving someone, you should always start from the right. However, in certain circumstances, in certain situations, if you were to start from the left, then that is also permissible, that is also allowed, and you cannot consider that, or you cannot call that khilaf sunnah or against sunnah. Now what I mean by certain situations, just say for example, like somebody comes and there is someone on the right hand side, but on the left hand side is someone like your teacher, or someone like a sheikh or something. Now obviously it's going to be a bit disrespectful for you to meet that person on the right and then go and meet your teacher. So in that situation, what you should do is go and meet your teacher first, even though he's on the left hand side, and then afterwards go and meet the ones who are on your right. And if you were to do that, you can't call that khilaf sunnah. Okay, so generally speaking, it should be always from the right, but if there is what is known in Arabic or Urdu as a WUDHU tarjih, i.e. someone like a teacher, someone like a big scholar or a sheikh is on the left hand side, then if you were to say start from the left, then in that situation it's not considered as khilaf sunnah. But the basic ruling is that you should always start from the right hand side. And the last mustahab act of wuzu is wa mashu raqaba, is to do masa of your neck. Okay, so to do masa of your neck, and that is also considered mustahab as well. And I'll just mention a couple of hadiths. I'll just mention one hadith actually, because many of the hadiths are very similar. But the hadith which I'm going to mention is from Musnad al-Firdaus, Imam Daylami rahmatullahi alayhi, Musnad al-Firdaus, where he narrates a hadith of Sayyiduna Ibn Umar anhu, that whoever makes masa of the neck will be liberated from the shackles of the Day of Judgment. On the Day of Judgment, there will be shackles and chains tying that particular individual. So if a person does masa on his neck, then he'll be saved from the shackles on the Day of Judgment. And other hadiths from Tirmidhi and of FIQH and other books as well, which kind of indicates to the same meaning, and that is that whoever makes masa of his neck will be saved from the shackles on the Day of Judgment. So from this we can understand that doing masa of the neck is established from hadith. Because with regards to the masa of neck, I'm not sure if you know, but some people say, oh, it's not established from any hadith, or it's fabricated and so on. There are some hadiths which are fabricated with regards to the masa of the neck, but the ones which I mentioned, such as the one from Tirmidhi, such as the one from Imam Daylami rahmatullahi alayhi, Musnad al-Firdaus, they are not fabricated hadiths. They are weak hadiths, but weak hadiths, as we're going to look at later, you can use when it comes for fadail. You are using it with regards to virtues, or like you're doing something without deeming it to be necessary, then there's nothing wrong with that. And with regards to masa of the neck, we are just saying it's mustahab and desirable. We are not saying it, or you have to do the masa of the neck, without which your wuzu will not be done. We are saying that it's mustahab and desirable to do. Now, before I give you the demonstration of how to do wuzu, just a few miscellaneous rulings, and then we will complete the section of how to do wuzu, and then inshallah we'll start the next section, which is things which breaks our wuzu. Now, just a few masail. Number one is, I may have mentioned this last week, the masala is that when you are doing wuzu, it's not necessary for you to be covered. It's not necessary for you to cover the satar area, which is from just below your navel up to and including your knees. So therefore, if a person says he's naked and he performs his wuzu will be done. Which takes me on to the masala regarding wuzu whilst having a bath. Now when you are having a bath, obviously the parts which need to be washed for wuzu are your arms, face, the masa of the head, and also your feet, because that is washed. So therefore it's not necessary for you to do the wuzu afterwards. Many people, they have this habit that they will have the bath and then after that they will go and make fresh wuzu. So that is not allowed. Or when it's not allowed, means that you shouldn't do that. Basically, the parts have already been washed in in ghusl and in the bath, so there's no need for you to repeat the wuzu again afterwards. To the extent that there is a hadith in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that man tawadda'a ba'da al-ghusli falaysa minna. That whoever does wuzu after ghusl falaysa minna, then he is not from amongst us. So that indicates towards the severity of not doing the wuzu afterwards. Because when you start deeming it to be necessary that, or you have to do wuzu afterwards, then you are innovating something which is not part of the Sharia. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Falaysa minna," that he is not from amongst us. So that is one ruling, that the wuzu which you do whilst having a bath and ghusl, that would be sufficient. The second ruling is regarding having doubts whether your wuzu has broken or not. So again, I may have mentioned this masala last week, and that is that if you are performing the wuzu, and whilst performing the wuzu, if you have a doubt that, oh, I haven't washed my face, or I haven't washed my arms, the ruling is that what you should do is, there and then you should just wash your arms, or that particular part where you have the shak and doubt on, and then proceed and continue with the wuzu. However, if after you performed your wuzu, and then you come to the masjid, and then just before you're about to start the salah, you get this doubt, intuition that, oh, I haven't washed my face. Then in that situation, you should not pay any attention to that, because that doubt or that intuition has come from shaitan. And actually, we were talking about this today in the tafsir after Zuhr in quite detail about shaitan, that he will try his best to either stop you from doing a'mal, from good deeds, or to decrease your a'mal and good deeds. So he'll always, tell you, whisper things to you that, oh, you've read too much nafil salah. Just say you read 2 rakat, extra nafil after Zuhr. So at Maghrib time, he will come and say, oh, well, you've read too much nafil today. There's no need for you to do the extra optional prayer after Maghrib. Or you're tired today, forget about reading extra optional prayer, we could do it tomorrow. You got work tomorrow, so there's no need for you to read the witr salah. You'll always make these kind of insinuation and whispers. The reason why is to stop you and prevent you from reading or doing any ibadat and worship. So all these are insinuations and whispers from shaitan. And one final masla, actually 2 other maslas regarding the wuzu section. One is, if somebody gives you salam whilst performing the wuzu, what should you do? And we're going to look at the issue of salam in detail later on. But just very briefly, like, to give salam is sunnah, but to reply to salam is wajib. It's one of those actions where you don't even have to give it. It's sunnah to give it, but when you do give it, then it is wajib and obligatory for you to reply. So just say, for example, if you are doing wuzu and then somebody gives you salam, what should you do? Now the masla is that if somebody gives you salam and whilst performing wuzu, you actually heard him give salam. Like, you're doing wuzu, but you're kind of conscious of what is happening around you. You're kind of conscious of what people are saying and talking. Somebody walks past and he says, Assalamu alaikum, and you kind of look back. So if you've heard him, then there's nothing wrong in replying to the salam. So you could say, Assalamu alaikum, and then, you could carry on with whatever you're doing. However, if you are doing wuzu and you were like busy in doing wuzu, and then somebody gives you salam and you did not hear him, then in that situation, there's no need for you to reply to the salam, because, because you haven't heard him, then how can you reply to the salam, okay? So what I'm trying to say with regards to the actual salam is that if you've heard the salam, then you can give the reply and jawab, but if you haven't heard it, then obviously you don't have to give it, okay? And for the person who's giving salam, because the person, when he's doing wuzu, he tends to be busy and so on, so it's preferable that you don't give salam to him. But sometimes what may happen is that someone's doing wuzu, but he's looking all around. Like, so maybe they're doing wuzu and they're looking at you and so on. So just say you entered the wuzu area and say he's doing salam on the first stool and he kind of sees you. He's doing wuzu, but he's seeing you as well. So in that situation, if you were to give salam, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're like busy doing his wuzu, not concentrating what is happening around, then in that situation, it's preferable that you don't give the salam. And just one final masala regarding salam, where some people they get, just to clarify actually this masala, and that is that when you give salam, as I said that when somebody gives you salam, it's obligatory for you to reply. Now, the obligation of salam will only be fulfilled when you reply to the salam loudly. Loudly meaning that in such a tone that the individual who has given you the salam, he can hear. Sometimes you give salam, otherwise mumble something to you. So when you mumble the salam back, then the obligation of the salam will not be done. So it has to be the individual who gives salam, he has to say clearly in such a way that you've heard it, and also the reply has to be given in such a way where the individual has it. Sometimes, like, I give salam to someone and then they mumble something and then they walk past quickly. So I kind of stop them and say, especially with the students in the madrasa where I teach, so I tell them, no, give salam properly and then go. So that is something which keep in mind. And another masala regarding salam is that sometimes you give salam to people and they wave at you. Waving at you doesn't, again, fulfill the obligation of salam. Okay, when you give salam, again, they should reply by saying, wa alaykum salam. Just waving like that, that doesn't fulfill the obligation of salam. The only time waving fulfills the obligation of salam is if someone is far away. But even then, the scholars have said that you should say the salam and also lift your hands up as well. So just say someone is on the other side of the road, obviously a lot of traffic and everything. So you say salam and raise your hand and say salam. So that raising the hand is the indication that he's giving salams to you. So then you should reply back by saying salam and then raise your hand. So keep these two masail in mind when it comes to salam. Okay, what I'll do now, just very briefly demonstrate how to do the wuzu. So obviously, first thing, you should like read Bismillah and so on. There's other du'as and adiyas which you can read, obviously found in Qalim al-Haq and other du'a books. So the first thing you should do is read Bismillah, make the intention, then wash your hands up to your wrist. Then afterwards you should do kulli. You should gargle. And the way you gargle according to the Hanafi fiqh is that you get a handful of water, you put it into your mouth, and then you will gargle 3 times. Obviously, if you've got the miswak, then prior to that you should use the miswak. If you haven't, then use the forefinger and then use that as a substitute of the miswak. After you've gargled 3 times, then you should clean your nose, rinse your nose out. And the way you do it in the Hanafi is that you get the handful of water with your right hand and you put it up to your nostril, and then you use the little finger, okay, not 2 fingers, not 2, 3 fingers, whatever, just a little finger on your left hand, and then you just put that up to your nostrils, so any kind of like filth which is in your nostrils and so on, you could clean that out. And then after you've done that 3 times, then wash your face. And I've explained before that face here means from the tip of your forehead up to your chin and from one earlobe to the other. And after you wash your face, making sure that every part of the face is wet, you will then wash your arms up to your elbows. Make sure again, including your elbows as well, the right arm, then your left arm. Then you will do masa. As I think last week I demonstrated how to do the masa. That you will put your hand, you wet your hand, and then these 3 fingers, little finger, ring finger, and middle finger, you will start the masa from the top of your head, front of your head, sorry, and then you will move all the way back, and then with the wet palms, you will then, from the back, you will move all the way forward. You bring it forward from the back all the way to the front, and then with the index finger, the wet index finger, you will do masa of the inner part of the ears, and then with the thumb, you will do masa of the outer part of your ears, and then the back of your hand, because that is still wet, will then do masa of your nape, and then you will do your khilal of your fingers, interlace between your fingers, and then afterwards you will wash your feet up to your ankles, and obviously you will use your little finger to do khilal between the toes. A couple of things I forgot to mention. One is the khilal of the beard. So you do the khilal of the beard after you wash your face, by the way. So to mention that. So after you wash your face, then you do the khilal of the beard. And with regards to doing khilal of the toes, the scholars have said that it is preferable and best that you wash your feet first. That put water over your feet first, and then at the end do khilal of your toes. Sometimes what they do is that they do khilal of the toes first, and then they wash their feet. Actually, you should actually wash your feet first up to your elbows, up to your ankles, and then afterwards do khilal between your toes. Keep these few things in mind. Okay, shall I just